Good morning, guys. It's good to see you all here. Today is Leo's demo day, and I'm so glad that y'all could join us. I know most of the people that are going to be joining us on the stream today are probably already pretty familiar with Leo and have been using her in the server for a while now. But for those of you who haven't or are coming across this video, I'm gonna do a small presentation today, not just on Leo and her construction, but on AI's impact in the music industry and how tools like this end up affecting our workflow down the line. So first things first, this tool was created with a small number of APIs that are all speaking to each other. Another thing that Leo does exceptionally well is demonstrate cross-platform API interconnectivity. And what this does is basically gives different artificial intelligences the ability to talk to each other. And by doing so, you're able to get more uh, competent outputs that are more comprehensive to help user immersion. Basically, if you're looking to get something that is going to end up being more engaging for the individual, you need to be able to touch on more senses. And crossing those API between voice connectivity and text connectivity is a great way to do that. So let's go ahead and I'm just going to cruise into our the slides here. So let's give a brief overview of Leo, who she is, what she does, and what we kind of aim to do with her. Leo is an AI radio host with the aspiration to eventually become a DJ. The difference here is that generally a radio host is going to be somebody who plays songs for the station, interacts with users, may occasionally tell a few stories, and will often push things from sponsors, right? A DJ, if you think about going to a club or something like that, they have a much more focused intent on bringing different musical playlists together and then smoothing out the transition between songs by being able to mix audio appropriately, right? So that's not something that Leo can do now, but that is the end goal for her, is that she'll also not only be able to handle her job as a radio host, but also become a DJ who can go ahead and bridge the different gaps in between these songs and really start doing her own mixes. So that being said, Leo is fully created and coded by GPT with a little bit of human oversight. There is not a bit of code that this AI did or that this project has engaged in from start to finish that wasn't AI generated. And that includes things like the sketch, how it was supposed to be built, the reworks that it went through, and everything else. Our development time for Leo was roughly about a month, with one developer working on it part-time using automation. That showed us that we were able to go ahead and put together comprehensive applications that would go ahead and handle multiple potentially very complex files and tasks. I should say and be perfectly upfront that while Leo is a very novel bot on the surface, her ability to go ahead and cross-talk in between various APIs and integrate them smoothly into an output, which is what she does when she takes GPT and sends it to 11 labs and then is able to go ahead and process that response, right? That's something that we are seeing at a very high level in AI right now. It's something that a lot of government contractors are very interested in at the moment. So this is a novel use for what is in reality a very in demand product with AI. And that's one of the reasons why being able to develop these applications like Leo and like some of the other bots that we've done is so important, because they show the accessibility for these very grand concepts on both a micro and a macro scale. So so let's go ahead and start with Leo's structure. How does she work? Leo is basically a bot that is able to take your inputs and she is able to go ahead and look at them and go, you know what, I think some great music for this would be X, Y, and Z. So she goes ahead and executes her own commands to go ahead and play that music so that users are also encouraged to go ahead and input their commands. This is as simple on Discord as using the exclamation mark play command. So Leo has the ability to execute her own commands alongside users. And what she will end up doing is if you speak directly to Leo with an at message or anything equivalent, she will go ahead and actually speak to you over the voice chat that she's using to go ahead and broadcast music. This is the same kind of expectation that you can have from a real life radio host and is something that Leo really excels at. Though we are seeing some slight delays in her output in terms of crosstalk between OAI and 11 Labs, this is mostly just a delay on service. As the technology continues to get better in terms of its performance, her responses are going to be even more instantaneous. And this is where music mixing and things like that, bridging from a radio host into a DJ, become important. Being able to fill dead time in the air and stuff like that is such an important thing when it comes to running a station like this for Leo. So today's presentation is going to go ahead and give an active demo of Leo, but before we even do that, we really have to get into the impact that not only Leo can potentially have on AI and the music industry, but how other programs are already impacting this, and how AI and content are sort of coming together to make these new standards and rules. So AI in composition and the production of music is a pretty hot topic right now for people. There are like 20 million different tools that you can use for this for so much now, and there is never a time where it's not going to be useful for people. We talk a lot about how right now one of the great things that AI does, especially for independent developers and small companies, is that it allows us to go ahead and escape some of the barrier of entry from a financial perspective, right? So if a project's barrier to entry for the music side of it was normally going to be $5,000 to go ahead and buy the rights to something, now instead you're able to get very similar vibes that are authentic to what you want out of your script, and you may only have to pay $20-$40 a month, right? So AI is really getting to a point, especially in sort of the production phase of music, where it is already able to do the same kind of supplements that text and image production have been able to do now in terms of their output, where a lot of people are worried about the displacement, but one of the biggest uses right now is for these novel concepts alongside just getting around that barrier to entry. So a couple of things. There are a number of different AI tools that are out there right now to go ahead and help with the production of music, but there's also tools to go ahead and help with things that are more specific but still related to the industry. Things like live translation, being able to take somebody's voice as they're speaking to you and then translate into another language. I think it'd be really interesting in the future when you're able to take something like some K-pop songs that you may not inherently understand, and then essentially on the fly in the vocalist's original voice, have them go ahead and do a dubbed version so you can get a better concept of the meaning of that song, right? That is an application that is mostly already done in terms of development, not from us, but there are a number of other companies who are already reaching towards these programs and already have a number of milestones met, right? Another one is really the ability to take old audio and improve it, give it more clarity, reduce background noise, though we have ways to do a lot of these things ourselves, including stuff like the voice morphs. The biggest thing that AI allows us to do is to be dynamic. It allows us to be flexible. So, based on something as simple as a prompt, we are able to go ahead and change things without needing to go ahead and change a large section of code. So, that's really one of the benefits that AI is going to see here is it's going to take these things that we normally already do with music, and it's gonna be able to give them some dynamic flexibility that I don't think the industry has seen before. Now, that being said, you can go ahead and just transition into full production and composition tools for vocal generation from things like 11 Labs, and there are 20 million other sites that do it better, but that is unfortunately the one I'm most familiar with at the moment due to making Leo. That's going to include soundboards, automated remastering and remixing. Again, we have tools that can go ahead and do these things now, but AI breaks down the barrier for entry, not just in terms of financially, but also in terms of the education prospect of these sorts of things, right? The knowledge is just that more accessible because you're using an AI model for this. And the other thing that comes along with this is better suggestion algorithms. So one of the things that AI really benefits from is having a huge library. That library and its training data, it's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic for the bot and fantastic for you because it's going to go ahead and introduce you to things that you have not necessarily been aware of before. You can have tons of knowledge in music, but unfortunately, you don't have a curated database in your head based on eras, genres, and regions across the globe, right? AI does. So that's one of the benefits to being able to use it in scenarios like this. Another one of the big benefits for things like this is the marketing and promotion of not just AI, but music and just about anything, right? You can go ahead and use products, bots, and generations like Leo to go ahead and make things that are exceptionally personable for people. Me personally, there's some music that I don't like. Screamo, really anything that is like just yelling into a microphone is not something that I particularly enjoy. So one of the things that I've gone ahead and done in Leo is I've essentially clipped her ability to go ahead and play that music. Now, somebody could still manually go in and play that music if she wanted to, but the bot no longer has preference for that. So I've made her more personable to the things that I like. I've also given her a taste for more modern music in like the last 40 years versus trying to pull everything from classical to current day. And different things like that have enabled me to really showcase how bots like this, despite how broad they are, right, trying to encompass an entire music library within GPT's database and then narrowing it down to just the things that we find enjoyable. That's personability. Now, productivity, another thing that happens in terms of marketing and promotion is the escalation of timelines, right? You have the ability to go ahead and take a concept that might have taken somebody a good year or 6 months of a part-time or full-time development cycle to go ahead and make something like this. And we were able to do so start to finish in a matter of weeks. Over Christmas, we got her working, right? So incredibly productive in terms of just shortening that development cycle, streamlining things to a point where they can actually go out for public use. And that brings us into partnerships is the other big thing behind promotions, and I'll just touch on this briefly. Applications like this are great for networking and partnerships. They're great to be able to do fancy little demos like this in places like Gray Matter, some of the conventions that I go to, and all sorts of different places, right? So these sorts of tools, as novel as they are a reach out into other things that hold similar parallels. I'm going to go ahead and move us into the next slide. So reception in the industry. One of the things that I unfortunately have to harp on in this presentation is not just like the grand use of AI, right? Because I do like to tote that around a lot, and I do have pretty lofty goals as to where I see the industry in the next 5 to 10 years. But in terms of the industry right now and what's going on is that there's a little bit of positive and there's a lot of negative reception right now. A lot of people feel like there's going to be copyright issues and job impacts, and obviously I have positive and negative flipped around here. I'm seeing as I read the slide. Oops. And then the positive use that a lot of people are talking about is obviously the novel use, more interest in the industry and production. A lot of people that are talking about the positives coming out of AI generally talk about AI that is not being used for profit or wholesale replication, right? But there is, quite frankly, far more negative feedback than there is positive. And the reality is there isn't a ton of positive reception outside of the AI and novel user communities regarding AI and music. It's important to note that consumptive user bases and their communities don't always share the same goals. And by that, I mean the people who are making the thing and the people who are consuming the thing. That doesn't always cross. Your developers are not always going to reflect what your users are looking to get out of a commodity. That's just the way life is, right? So even though there may be tons of people right now who are consuming AI music, whether they realize these things or not, if they've been introduced to aspects of AI music, again, things they may not even be aware of, right? The fact is that the producers, the people who are consuming the music, the AI community, and the general public are all going to feel differently about the way that these things are sort of taken. And that brings us to the future of those sorts of things, our emerging trends and looking forward, right? So, like it or not, this sort of adaptation of personalization is going to continue. There are a lot of papers out right now, lots of speculative ones, especially about how AI has the ability to go ahead and replace media and content by like 90% over the next 10 years. And at first, a year and a half, 2 years ago, I thought that that was absolutely insane. I was like, there's no way that can happen. But the further we get along with development, the more and more I think there might be something to that, right? There are a lot of people right now who see AI as like this magic cure-all, something that they can just take and apply to anything and go ahead and make fixes. And whether or not that's the case sort of remains to be seen. There are still tons of different applications with this, right? But it's never going to get worse than it is right now in terms of the long term. It's just going to continue to get better. And that means two different fields of study are going to kind of emerge in this. Now, a lot of people are familiar with the idea of an actual robot or an automaton, an independent thing walking around, such as like one of the DARPA robots, the like robotic dogs, or just something made to mimic a person wandering around, right? When you think about the future and you think about robot maids and butlers, you think of automatons. But there's another aspect of AI that is really emerging, and that is the transhumanism aspect. That is the ability to go ahead and shape oneself based on emerging technology, right? Now, we used to do this in the past. Everybody realistically engages in transhumanism on some level. If you have ever taken a bit of Tylenol for a headache, right? You are looking at something that you do not like presently within yourself, and you are taking a scientific fix for it, in this case, medication. So, transhumanism is really one of those things that's going to escalate over the next 10 years. And I think you're going to see this big fight between the ability for people to sort of upgrade themselves in these various ways versus the automaton, the focus on putting a brain in a machine and giving it the ability to move and interact with the world around us. So Leo does that in a way, right? She has the ability to sort of bridge the gap for that on us. She has the ability to speak with us, to interact with us, and feel quite real from a distance, right? But the day that you are either able to take the transhumanism versus automaton route with her will be interesting, right? Whether you are streaming something like that to your glasses, right, via Google or something funky like that, or you're putting it in an actual robot that is chilling in a DJ lounge at a radio station in the middle of nowhere. Those are two very real but far off and future possibilities for this kind of technology that we're going to see coming out over the next 10 years. But we're already seeing evolutions in this tech, and that is quality standards. Right now we've seen this a lot in terms of other aspects of both the music industry and gaming. Technology in general has been very transparent with this, right? Usually what ends up happening is there is a tool of some kind that comes along that either compensates for a flaw that individuals have that would keep them out of the industry, or it automates something and just makes the process easier and less time consuming, right? Generally what happens is one of these tools are introduced and there is an immediate backlash and people go, oh my goodness, if you make something with that, it's going to be awful. I remember this when autotune first came up in the music industry. Using that was seen as something that was considered very cheesy and not something that a lot of good artists would do, right? Because it compensates for your vocal abilities. Now that's something that is quite frankly very standard that we see, just applied to different degrees. Same thing goes for different aspects of tech and gaming. We saw this with weirdly enough streaming of all things, as I sit here and talk to you guys over a live stream right now. Originally when live streaming came about, and I'm talking before Twitch even came into the picture, there was an idea that live streaming itself was going to be something that was going to degrade the quality of not only YouTube, but these other various platforms where gamers came together. And the idea behind that just was that there was going to be tons of people pushing out nonsense content. And now, over 15 years later, the genre truly is overpopulated. But now that we see is that there are new unique standards to what we consider acceptable for live streaming. You used to just be able to go on and boot up some 420p footage of you playing League of Legends, and that's not really the case anymore. If you want to go ahead and get viewers, now you have to go ahead and be engaging, potentially be good, if not both of those things, right? You have to have some decent overlays. These sort of bits of fluff are just an expectation of what people would consider quality, in addition to your high definition streams in 60 FPS, right? So what we're seeing isn't a complete rejection of these technologies. Instead, it is a slow embrace to what is new quality standards. And that's something that we are going to unfortunately kind of have to adjust to in the music industry, because this is something that is going to start hitting harder and harder since these tools are becoming more and more comprehensive. I talked a little bit earlier about Leo's development cycle, but truthfully, it was probably one of the easier projects I have taken on. She only took 3 to 4 weeks to develop at most, and that included at one point rewriting her entire logic structure for how she played music. So all I used was Notepad++, 11 labs to run her voice, Discord for her to connect to and play music, and GPT to go ahead and run the code. We started off by asking GPT to go ahead and write the code structure and suggestions for the libraries that we would need to use to make it work. And then we took that and made a list of all of those things, right? So we knew that from the bot, the most important thing was going to be initializing the connection of Leo to the voice chat and then setting up her play function and her cue function. Now, initially, Leo worked by streaming music directly from YouTube after an individual put in a play command, and it would live stream the music after it buffered it. It was very simple. And then it would move on to the next song in the queue, and that was that. About halfway through our development cycle, we noticed that this was producing quality issues that we could not fix through adjustments, and we ended up needing to do a workaround that involved dismantling roughly 75% of her code and reworking it so that she works on a download and cache system now. And what this means is that instead of live streaming music from YouTube into Discord's voice chat, she downloads the song. That way she can get it in the highest quality possible, and then she feeds the song through Discord. The other thing that this does is it allows Leo to be run locally by computers that are incredibly ancient without a lot of impact, right? The other thing that this has done is it's allowed us to sort of just expand on the things that Leo can do. So not only is her queue more comprehensive now with this sort of download function, but now we have the ability to go ahead and actually inject files into the queue. So one of the benefits that Leo has now is that she can go ahead and play like ad spaces and things like that for individuals, as well as be a reminder bot, giving alerts to the Discord when live streams are or when she's booting up and playing music, right? So Leo has the ability to be much more interactive now because she's much less focused on streaming things and more worried about putting things in her cache. So let's go ahead and just give the briefest overview to Leo. She works just about like every other Discord bot you'd imagine. She has play commands, pause, next, back, upcoming, play now, shuffle, stop, everything that you'd expect out of a premium music player. The only difference is that when you add the bot, she will actually talk to you over voice chat and then update the music queue accordingly. In addition to that, Leo does the one thing that a human DJ quite frankly can't. She runs 24/7. And that means that when the queue is empty and you're like, darn, I am out of ideas for what to put on for music now, Leo takes care of all of that for you. She keeps in mind the context of what you've been playing before and the context of what you have in the code in terms of the music that you want to see more of, right? And then she starts looking for that music, executes her own commands, and starts playing it over chat. It sounds incredibly simple. Leo runs on less than 3,000 lines of code and about 24 files to go ahead and execute all of this properly. And let me go ahead and pull up my other screen here so I can actually give you guys an idea of Leo in action. Now, here's the thing. I don't actually have the ability to go ahead and play music for you guys over stream. You guys know this as well as I do because nobody needs to get a copyright strike or anything like that. But I am going to go ahead and show you guys essentially how she works. So right now, I'm the only one in the voice chat. It's just me hanging out here in the Frequency Funhouse. I'm the purple user, and let's say I am bored and I want to go ahead and play some silly music. So I need some bard music going on, so I'm just going to play Perception Check. what's going to happen is that Leo is going to go ahead and join the chat. She is the blue user right here. And in a moment, she's going to go ahead and kick that off. Unless I'm wrong, and then somehow I get critted in my own demo trying to show Leo working. Here we go. Let's try that once more. So this is a great demonstration of Leo's built-in error handling. There we go. Now she's playing. One of the things that happens sometimes is that maybe you come across a duplicate in the cache. A perception check is always my go-to check for her, so oftentimes I end up coming across duplicates. Now, built-in error handling for that can be done, but one of the other things that we can do is we can build a function that clears the cache and basically handles that error and many others for us in case we come across them. So now what you can see is Leo is downloaded and actively streaming the audio, but for some reason I'm like, man, I actually want something that is a little bit different. So instead I'm going to ask Leo to get us hyped up with some funk, and in this case it's going to be invisible funk because nobody can actually hear what's going on. Now in the back end, what's happening is Leo is sending a fetch request to OAI, and then she is sending that part of that information, everything but her commands, over to 11 Labs, and then she's going to go ahead and play the 11 Labs message over Discord. While she's doing that, she adds all of the songs to the queue, and you can see that we've got a number now for funk songs. It's currently playing 1, and we've got another 3 coming up. But just like everything else, you could move to the next song, remove songs in the queue if you wanted, and just I don't know, pause the music for good measure, right? So you have the ability not only to interact with Leo on all of these levels that you would a normal music player. She's never going to like take control from you or anything like that. But also if you wanted to treat her more like just a person or just a radio host, you could do that as well and be like, hey, why don't you go ahead and stop the music? Why don't you go ahead and put on some more tunes from this genre? Hey, I'm having X kind of day and I want something that's going to make me feel better. Or it's Christmas time and I want something seasonable, but please nothing from this artist, right? This is a great way not only to get introduced to new music just by letting the bot run and sort of manage her own queue, but it's a great way to go ahead and engage in having these sort of high-end premium music players without actually having to pay anyone anything, quite frankly. So she was a great little novel tool to develop in that aspect. All right. And that basically wraps up how Leo works. She isn't attempting to be anything crazy. She isn't attempting to be anything that she isn't. She's just a radio host that you can chat with, plays music, and will go ahead and make suggestions to you, all while cross-talking between various APIs. All in all, Leo shows us how this industry is really evolving, not only to go ahead and incorporate different aspects of music generation, text generation, and image generation, but also how we use this music to go ahead and build personalized companionship, individual tools, and the barriers of entry that, quite frankly, AI has allowed us to demolish in the last 6 months to a year. As GPT-4 and GPT-5 eventually comes into play and code becomes more and more comprehensive, tools like this are going to continue to escalate not only in terms of their personability, but their comprehension and their ease of execution by novice developers who have never touched code before. So as fun as Leo was to make, she was a demonstration that at the end of the day, somebody with no knowledge of a specific framework could come in and build a comprehensive and high-end tool without ever having touched it before. Though I've never played around with Discord.js before messing with Leo, because of the experience that I've now had with her, making Discord bots is as easy as 1, 2, 3. So with that being said, that about wraps it up from me. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. It was a great day, nice, concise, short presentation for Leo, all the things that she does, and the potentials that these things have to go ahead and shape our future. I appreciate you guys for joining me. Remember that Leo is on for free in the TTI Discord server. You are welcome to use her at any point, and I will see you guys later.